Hi, this is the first of a series of lessons on improvisation, and we're going to be using the tune, the Joe Henderson tune, Recorda. And students often ask me, how do I find the notes that are going to work? Here I have all these chords, and I don't know what to play. And I'm fooling around trying to find something, and I got all these notes that sound like they don't belong. So what do I do? And there's some basic things that we can all learn that are going to help us play things that are at least acceptable. All right. Now, whether the ideas are going to be great or not is another story, but we should talk about how to find those notes that will work. And the first step, just like when you play a chord, is to know the notes of the chord and to be able to play those notes. It's not just horizontally, vertically, which would be the chord itself, but horizontally, which would be arpeggios. And that's a really good first step. So if we take the first chord in Recorda, it's an A minor ninth with an added sixth. And the notes, let's just take an A minor ninth. And the notes to that are A, it's the root, C is the minor third, E is the fifth, G is the seventh, B is the ninth. So it's A, C, E, G, B. Now, this lesson is not going to talk about fingering or technique. It's really talking about what are the notes and how you find them. At this point, you can try and follow and see what I've done, or work it out for yourself. But the important thing is, what are the notes? And if we just take these first notes, A, C, E, G, B, and you can play them. So I just went up A, C, E, G, B, C, E, G, A, C, B. Just play around with it. You can play it backwards. So you should be able to go in either direction. If you started this arpeggio, not on the A, which is the root, but the C, and went up C, E, G, B, as if you played the A, but you're not playing it, you have a C major seventh arpeggio. And C major seventh can be played very easily against an A minor seventh or an A minor ninth. Or here's a basic A minor chord, as simple as you can get. It's a little basic A minor chord, and it is. And that's just C major seventh, and it sounds perfectly wonderful against that A minor chord. So what you want to be able to do is play the chord and then play at least 2 octaves of the arpeggio, and then start fooling around with the notes of the arpeggio. And it doesn't have to start and end on the name of the chord. It can start and end on any note. And you can repeat notes, and you can have silences. You can play all these games with it. You can play. So there, except actually one case I actually slipped in a note that was not part of the arpeggio, but that was all the arpeggio, excuse me. And you can do, play a lot of things with it. You can play very simply, you can play very beautifully. So that's one step, to play the chord and fool around with the arpeggio, because that's going to get the sound of the chord in your hands and in your head. The next step is to talk about the chord scale. And in this case, you're really playing in the key of G, and you're playing the Dorian mode. The Dorian mode is based on A. And the reason you're playing a Dorian mode is if you listen to the melody, and Joe's playing E, B, C, E, C, F sharp. That F sharp is really the hint. It's saying, hey guys, we're playing Dorian. And here's how you know that. An A minor chord, if we're talking about major keys, could be a 6 chord in the key of C. It could be a 3 chord in the key of F, and it could be a 2 chord in the key of G. Now, the only one of those keys that has an F sharp is the key of G. So, good idea is to think that this is the key of G. And let's look at the notes of the key of G starting and ending on A. So, I'm playing A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. So everything is natural except the F sharp. Now, you might ask the question, and you're not going to be the first to do that, and say, well, why should I think about this as a Dorian mode? Why don't I just think about it as the key of G, and I'll be happy as a clam. I don't have to learn anything new. And there are people who do that, and hey, it works great for them. The advantage of thinking Dorian is that if you know the Dorian mode, and you know that it's a Dorian mode built on the note A, you don't have to translate it back to the key of G. You can just say, hey, that's A Dorian, and I play that. The less translation you do, the faster you can respond to something. So that would be the reason why. Now, initially, if you haven't thought modally or played modes, it's going to seem harder to do it that way, but I think over time it's going to seem easier. And then at some point, you probably won't even think about it at all. You'll just say, oh, I know what I'm playing over there. In this case, I'm going to do A Dorian, and it's going to be very, very natural. And there are people who claim not to think about that at all, but they still play it. So whether they're thinking about it or not, they're really playing that. So let's look at that A Dorian. Let's look at the notes and see how those notes fit the A minor chord. And one of the things that I want to talk about very briefly is that there are notes that sound very good against the chord, that aren't notes of the chord. And there are notes that are in a chord scale that may not sound very good against the chord. We call those avoid notes. And it doesn't mean you can't play them, but typically you don't emphasize them or you don't stay on them very long. You might jump to them and then jump off. And the way you recognize it, first of all, it's just not going to sound very good. Of course, if it sounds good to you, forget every rule, that's good. But the real rule is that, or an easy rule to follow, is if a note of the chord scale, which is not a note of the chord, is a whole step higher than a note of the chord, then it's okay. If it's a half step higher than a note of the chord, then it's an avoid note. Okay? So here we go. The first note is A, which is the note of the chord. The next note in the chord scale is B, and B is a whole step higher than A. It's A to B, A to B. It's a whole step, so B is good. The next note is a C, that's a note of the chord, so that's always good. The next note of the chord scale is D, that's a whole step higher than a note of the chord, so that's fine. The next note is E, that's the fifth of the chord. Chord note's always good. The next note is F sharp, that's a whole step higher than the E, so that's good. Next note is G, that's a note of the chord, always good. And the next note is A. So every note of the Dorian mode is okay against that A minor chord. And just to show you that, here's a simple A minor chord. And I'm going to play notes that are not part of the chord, but are notes of the chord scale, where I'm going to emphasize those notes. So I'm emphasizing the B, and the F sharp, and that's the D. So I don't even have to get off of it. So here's the assignment. People love homework. Is let that chord ring. Try playing arpeggios against it. Make sure you know when you're playing the arpeggio what the root of the arpeggio is, the third, the fifth, seventh, the ninth. And when you play notes of the chord scale, see how they relate to the arpeggio. Not only, so if you're going from this note to this note in the arpeggio, well, what's the note that's in between? If you're going from this note to this note, what's the note that's in between? If you're going from this note to this note, what's in between? And you should get a friend who can sit and play the chords for you. Just play the one chord. You got 4 measures of that A minor ninth with the added sixth. and just try playing the arpeggio against it. Play it ascending, play it descending, start on the root, start on the third, start on the fifth, start on the seventh, start on the ninth, and then start playing things in the Dorian mode. And again, think about what those notes are in relationship to the chord. Okay, so this is the first step. There'll be a bunch of lessons to follow. We're going to cover every note of this tune. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get some stuff out of it. And I'll see you soon on the web. Take care.